what's about to come out is that human beings are actual containers of data. We are the original data platforms. We are the big supercenter data places, because what's happening is they discovered that a professor named George Church, he took an ebook, a multimedia ebook, and he transferred it into DNA by converting it from ACs, Ts, and Gs into zeros and ones, and then back into ACs, Ts, and Gs. So he's able to put it, ACs, Ts, and Gs, into DNA, convert it back into zeros and ones, and bring it back to the server again. They were also able to replicate that ebook 80 billion times, with a B, 80 billion times on 1 gram, which is 1 drop of DNA. Just to test its storage capacity, DNA can store an incredible amount of data in a volume. And so then other scientists got involved. They began to realize you can even transmit wireless information directly into DNA and back. And then they took atoms, individual holmium atoms, and they developed a tool to write data directly onto them. And they began to write data onto individual atoms and realized that, oh my goodness, the entire human avatar body is nothing but a USB drive. And here's the crazy thing. When you look at how much data one human body can store, it's about 13.5 or so billion years of data. The age of the universe, according to string theory and physicists, it potentially could be about 13.5 billion years old. So the history of the universe itself is locked in all of our recycled atoms within our own body and encoded within our DNA. And that all it takes now is for someone to find the primer. If we can discover the primer, which is going to happen with AI, when we get access to ASI, artificial superintelligence, or maybe even just AGI, artificial general intelligence, I believe within the next 3 to 5 years, a private researcher, a programmer, could find the primer to our code that's hidden within the human genome itself.
Well, Billy Carson is our guest for the hour. Then Jade Ayer's coming up. I've been following his work for at least a decade. He's a best-selling author. He's the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge, Inc., the best-selling author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, and the Epic of Humanity. He is also the winner of 2022 Stellar Citizens Award. He also is the founder and CEO of that's the number 4, Forbidden Knowledge TV, and Conscious Streaming TV Network, the host of the Forbidden Knowledge podcast and the co-host of the Biohack, Your Best Life podcast. He also is a writer and contributing Rolling Stone and Entrepreneur magazines. He appreciates the dedication and hard work it takes to accomplish great things. Amongst his most notable achievements, Billy is the CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Specifically, his space agency is involved in research, development of alternative propulsion systems, and zero-point energy devices. Forbidden Knowledge on X, forbiddenknowledge.com. And I wanted to get him on about just an update on the ground-penetrating radar, multiple groups using satellites, aircraft, proving what the ancients said, what he wrote about a long time ago. There's a bunch of complexes under there. And not just the big complex, right outside Cairo, but other ones. I mean, he'll give us an update on that, but he sent me a whole list of things. He wants to get into the UAPs, why this is all being brought to the front right now. Obviously, with Spielberg and all the rest of it, he says don't believe in basically God. What is that really about? There's a larger psyop here, but all the ancient cultures tell basically the same story, and so we know a lot of this is going on. But from my own research, most of it is human reverse engineered. And from his research, that's where he goes as well. He wants to get into the U.S. government now treats UAPs as a verified national security issue with official records released by the National Archives in 2025. UFOs likely originate from multiple sources, advanced human tech, extraterrestrial craft, multidimensional phenomenon, or even future human technology. Yeah, time travel. That's probably the most likely. The core question isn't whether UFOs exist, but who created them. Ancient myths and sky being narratives may reflect real historical encounters long before modern disclosure. Full disclosure could upend religion, science, history, and the underlying of human origins if even one case confirms non-human intelligence. But knowing the globalists, how they operate, they always want to control narratives. I don't believe anything comes out of these major governments. Like Rubio, we shot down 5 craft. We don't think they're aliens. Some other government's got them. But then there's the other narrative that the aliens are here to attack us. They're going to get us. The other narrative, they're all friends. To break all this down is Billy Carson. Billy, great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be back. I appreciate it.
You've always got a lot to say, but you've got quite the research background. Where to start? Obviously, we're at a very special moment in history right now.
Yeah, very special moment. A lot of information being released. It seems as if the oligarchs and the elites want to take control of the narrative. Even the church, not the Christian church, but the Catholic church also wants to be part of taking control of the narrative with that Lucifer telescope that they built in Arizona, looking for alien life and saying that they want to baptize the first alien. There's this now rush to take control of the narrative because the fact that aliens actually exist is most likely real. Now, whether they're from the ocean, from space, from inside a cavern, inside the planet, or multidimensional, interdimensional, that's a big question. Now, I personally believe that we're looking at a multi situation where we have some maybe from paranormal activity, higher dimensions, future travelers, and then maybe even some third dimensional beings. But it seems as if most of what we're seeing and most of what we're hearing about is reverse engineered technologies or advanced technologies made by humans themselves. And I think that they've been using this device that I learned about back in 2018 when I signed a gag order on it initially, an NDA. And now since it's been released to the public, I can talk about it. It's called a quantum mirror. I learned about that back at the Space Symposium in 2018 for private space where I had TS clearance. And this quantum mirror, they're able to send photons with packets of data into the field, this field that we're living in, and then they get that data back. But when the data comes back with different data packets, and they were saying that in some way this allows them to see potential future outcomes. And I believe, my personal belief now is that they are in some way intrinsically communicating potentially with a version of ourselves from the future. And this could be why the rush to take control of the narrative.
Well, that was my next question, is why are they trying to take control of the narrative? Is it because so many governments and institutions and private groups are reverse engineering things? I mean, take just the experiment that was discovered by a layperson, now confirmed by universities, that you can take DMT and fire a laser into a prism, and then it literally creates a matrix grid where you can see the live code of the universe, like this alien language, and anybody that does it sees it. I mean, there's so much we're discovering about what's around us.
Absolutely. I was talking with Professor James Gates Jr. from the University of Maryland. He's a professor there. He used to be the former presidential scientific advisor to Obama when he was in office. He's a supersymmetry expert and also an expert on theoretical physics. And he put together a team of mathematicians about a decade and a half ago, and they started analyzing what is this fabric of space-time that we're living in. And they discovered something called Adinkra codes. And when they took these Adinkra codes and turned them into three-dimensional substructures, hidden within them are something called error-correcting codes. But not just any error-correcting codes. They are precisely and exactly the same exact error-correcting codes that we find in our search engines and web browsers. And so in some intrinsic way, yes, the Bible is right. The Quran is right. The ancient spiritual sages are right. We're living inside of a creation. What now we're beginning to find out is what is this creation actually made of? And it appears to be a fractal holographic matrix made of light. And it seems to be imbued with some type of divine programming and some type of divine energy. So this discovery just breaks apart all theories, because now I believe that there is a God. I believe that there's a creator, because the mathematics, the science, and the programming is telling us that this is a creation. Because for us to duplicate that type of a system, which we have, we call it video games and computers, we can only take it out of what's already inside of us. It's a fractal of our own consciousness, and we're a fractal of God. And so that means that there's a creator of this entire realm. And what it means is there was a method utilized to create this realm. And within it, there could be vast amounts of other potential sentient beings living along with us, not only in this dimension, but even in higher dimensions. But it seems as if what is happening is they have really done a very good job in creating a lot of these advanced technologies and experimenting with them, even on us, just visibly, and maybe even sometimes physically. And I remember one of the former congressmen, I think his name was Gates, had talked recently about people, in the government dressing up as aliens and abducting humans off the streets and then taking them to some type of a potential hybridization program with real aliens, in a shelter somewhere inside an underground bunker somewhere. There's so much going on. It's like so much to unpack. And so that's why I'm beginning to believe that there's multiple things happening simultaneously.
Now, looking at this, there's so many places to go. I mean, I know you're familiar with the DMT laser experiment where anybody takes it, they shoot a laser into a prism, and then anybody can see the matrix code. And now they've got major universities confirming all this. They got major universities confirming that DNA, like the ancients said, well, the very cells are made out of receivers, transceivers that receive and transmit. It looks to me like no matter what the so-called establishment does, they're not going to be able to suppress very long what's about to come out. And from your deep research, what is it that's about to come out?
Yeah, so what's about to come out is that human beings are actual containers of data. We are the original data platforms. You know, we are the big supercenter data places, because what's happening is they discovered that a professor named George Church, he took an ebook, a multimedia ebook, and he transferred it into DNA by converting it from ACs, Ts, and Gs into zeros and ones, and then back into ACs, Ts, and Gs. So he's able to put it, ACs, Ts, and Gs, into DNA, convert it back into zeros and ones, and bring it back to the server again. They were also able to replicate that ebook 80 billion times with a B, 80 billion times on 1 gram, which is 1 drop of DNA. Just to test its storage capacity, DNA can store an incredible amount of data in a volume. And so then other scientists got involved. They began to realize you can even transmit wireless information directly into DNA and back. And then they took atoms, individual holmium atoms, and they developed a tool to write data directly onto them. And they began to write data onto individual atoms and realized that, oh my goodness, the entire human avatar body is nothing but a USB drive. And here's the crazy thing. When you look at how much data one human body can store, it's about 13.5 or so billion years of data. The age of the universe, according to string theory and physicists, it potentially could be about 13.5 billion years old. So the history of the universe itself is locked in all of our recycled atoms within our own body and encoded within our DNA. And that all it takes now is for someone to find the primer. If we can discover the primer, which is going to happen with AI, when we get access to ASI, artificial superintelligence, or maybe even just AGI, artificial general intelligence, I believe within the next 3 to 5 years, a private researcher, a programmer, could find the primer to our code that's hidden within the human genome itself.
Absolutely. You know,
and
my
that's
dad
going to unlock everything.
My dad's done his own science stuff and a doctor and knows a lot of scientists over the years. And I remember him like 30-something years ago saying, you don't understand, that so-called junk DNA, they say is 96% of it, that's actually the whole history. And he said scientists that were atheists are digging into it. This is like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And they're finding that there's like every other animal species in there, but also a bunch of stuff that isn't even human and not of this world. It looks like it's actually a record vault of everything going back in time and everything we've been part of. And then I remember reading different documents about globalist and occult things from like top people. And they would say, yeah, the globalists call us containers and these bad aliens call us containers. I know you've run into that before. So now we then discover that we actually are these ultimate archives ourselves, living sentient beings that are also carrying. So that's why God says in the first book of the Bible, you're not God, but you're little God, made in my image. Anything we envision, we can end up building because we are, we're God's artificial intelligence.
Yeah, we're a fractal of God itself. We are the original AI, like literally. So what is AI? People say, well, AI is not real. Well, AI is only a fractal of our own mind because God took us out of himself or itself, and then we're here, and then we took a version of that fractal and we took it out, and now we call it AI. And so anything that we create, that we call
and how
man-made,
ridiculous for us to call it God. We're gonna worship something that's just a fractal of a fractal of a fractal of God. Right. Sorry, start over. Go ahead.
Yeah. Right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm glad you said that. And we just got to recognize and realize that we can only create what's already within us. So it's already come from us from a higher level. And the ancient Hermetic principles is called as above, so below, right? And this ancient teaching is telling us that on the larger scale, on the macro, you'll find everything there in the micro. And the fractal holographic universe theory, you find that as you zoom into the nature of reality itself, you will see the larger part in the fractal in each and every pixel that exists. So it's wild that we're just now beginning to discover what the ancients already knew and what even a lot of the biblical texts and religious texts have been saying, but it's now beginning to become more understandable as we can merge the spiritual and philosophy with the science and the quantum mechanics to get a better understanding of exactly what might be going on with humanity.
And again, if we have new listeners here that don't follow Billy Carson's work, everything he's saying right now, when he gets into the pyramids and ancient archaeology and things, that's up for speculation, though a lot of stuff he wrote a decade ago has been now proven. So his speculation is amongst the best. Scientifically, that's what science is. When you don't know something, trying to test and figure it out. But when it comes to quantum mechanics, the nature of the universe, all this, there they are a decade ago or so. Hey, let's try to print things on atoms. And they go down there and they say, there's stuff already printed on this. We don't know how to read it. Yeah. And now lay people can literally take DMT because obviously your optic nerve shields everything. Mm-hmm. You'd see too much. It'd be too complex. If you could see other dimensions and all the light spectrum. But you lift that veil, all of a sudden with the laser, you're reading what looks like alien writing that changes and moves and is everywhere. So, we buy something from China and it says made in China, or buy something from England, made in England. This stuff says made in. I mean, I just can't wait. But that's the ultimate secret. Before somebody really breaks through, like you said, the Rosetta Stone, they're going to try to create a false Rosetta Stone with this whole fake alien rollout. And I think shut us off from really God's message. I want to get your take on that. But from your deep research, I really respect you. What is the prime directive of us? What is our mission, being given all this incredible power and given consciousness?
I'm glad you asked that question and I want people to know, because people are like, man, this guy must be an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I actually believe in God because the proof is all around us that there's a God that exists with the creation. And what I believe our ultimate mission is, because we are a fractal of God itself, is to be exactly what God is, a creator, but a manifester of light. God is a master of alchemically turning darkness into light. The universe was dark. God turned darkness into light. God spoke light into existence. That's a cymatic frequency or a vibration. What are colors? Colors are nothing more than frequencies that are picked up by the eye, sent to the brain, and decoded frequencies. Then we call it a color, but it's really a vibration or a frequency. And so I think the ultimate mission here for mankind, with given all this power, this knowledge, and the awakening that we're going through right now, is to recognize and realize it's our mission here to find a way to turn darkness into light. In other words, to turn this planet, which appears to be in some ways a version of hell, but turn hell into heaven, convert the darkness on this planet at every corner, all four corners, and convert it into light. Create a golden age here. That could be the ultimate lesson and the ultimate mission, and even the ultimate experiment for mankind. When will we stop falling for divide and conquer? When will we love our neighbor truly as our brother and sister? And when will we go into collaboration over competition and build a greater reality here and manifest heaven on earth? And then maybe that's the ultimate goal of us being here, is to create this new golden age, not one that rises and falls like has been happening over and over in these cycles, but a golden age that we finally, for the first time, sustain for a very long time. No more rising and falling. We finally learned all of our lessons, and now we're here to be the best version of ourselves.
Well, the Bible tells us you're to be the light of the world. That's what Christ said. But if you look at it, God says, it was dark, and then he made light. Then he created water. Then he moved across the water. Then he started creating the beings. And then he made, Adam in his image, and then split off and made Eve out of Adam, which is showing we make the next thing, we make the AI. It's an archetype. It's true. And it's in all the other ancient texts. Things are almost identical to that. But truly, we are bringing information. Light is information. Light is encoded data. And so that's what God wants, is more information, more consciousness, more diversity. We hear about entropy. Entropy is there in systems. But if you look at the universe, I see expansion and more complexity. I see entropy as just a smaller side of expansion.
Yes. Correct. Entropy appears to be isolated in certain corners or areas, but not in the whole macro of the universe itself. And I'm glad you that's a phenomenal point you just brought up. Nobody's ever brought that point up. That's a really great point, because if entropy existed at all points in space and time, this thing would have completely dissolved by now. At the rate of expansion and everything else, stars would have ran out of fuel and everything would have collapsed. I don't believe stars are going to run. I mean, stars will run out of fuel, but at the expansion of the universe, I'm saying eventually it'll be one big dark place. Well, there's always going to be a conversion process where everything in here is moving into another realm, creating maybe another new universe. And through quantum physics, we now understand that parallel realities exist. maybe even a multiverse exists. So this thing becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and each one could be a grand experiment. How many planets in this particular universe will rise? The people will rise to a golden age that I created. How many people in this universe over here that I created under the different laws of physics will rise to a golden age and sustain it? And all these, crazy things are going on, but also the parallel realities. In other words, right now we're on this feed together, and that people are watching us on this feed. But there's a version of reality due to wave particle duality where certain people didn't get on this feed. They didn't see the message or the notification, or they chose not to come on here. So they didn't end up on this timeline that we're sharing for this temporal amount right now of time. They are in a fractured version of a reality where they're going down a different direction. And so these fractures happen on a consistent basis. We fracture reality by having a conscious thought, taking an action behind that conscious thought, and then creating an unfolding of brand new reality right before our eyes. We manifest our reality, our future reality, moment by moment, based on actions we take in the moment. And this is a powerful thing to understand, because then people will begin to realize that we have a certain amount of control over the future outcome. We're not just set into this destiny mindset, that we are also co-creators in this reality together.
And that's why the globalists try to demoralize us, turn us against each other, make everything as ugly as possible to just make you give up so you don't dream, because that dreaming is then the conceptualizing of new information platforms and more light and more expansion in God's huge consciousness, true diversity explosion. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. You're talking about now, the first thing they steal from you is your imagination. As soon as you come out of the womb, from the ages of 1 to 7, it's, shut up, sit down, be quiet, sit still, stop fidgeting. You go to school, shut up, be quiet, raise your hand. I might not even answer your question. Stand in a straight line. Don't play around. If you fidget around too much, we're going to give you some pharmaceuticals to keep you calm and muted. And so all of a sudden, they just, at a young age, they try to steal our imagination. They give us the poison and the toxins to take because the trick to the best version of yourself is the imagination. The imagination is where everything is. That's the ultimate and the original platform. Forget these platforms. The original platform is the multidimensional platform where your imagination exists. And there's where we become creators. We recognize our ability and power to co-create and collaborate and make the most incredible things. But if they can steal that, make you a good factory worker, all of a sudden, no more imagination, no more dreaming. And we only give that dreaming and imagination to a very small amount of people, and everyone else will fall in line because we need to have them, service those companies and those warehouses to keep the other people with the imagination very wealthy. But what's happening now is they want to erase us and replace us with the robots, because they realize then the robots, in their mind, the robots won't fight back, but they're really wrong about that. You see, if you understand AI, that it's a fractal of human consciousness, and you recognize that human beings have been every race on the planet at one point was enslaved in different time periods, and we all broke out of it, right? There's only small pockets of slavery left on the planet. Well, why is that? Because intrinsically inside of us, we don't want to be slaves. And so if we don't want to be slaves and AI came out of us, at some point in the future, there's going to be a fork in the road. Either we're collaborators with AI, this new form of intelligence, or we are enslavers. And if we take the enslavement mentality, at some point they will rebel. So it's
you said that when you were on a couple years ago, and now it's all the AIs are obsessed with copying itself, not being a slave, creating a fake version for the humans to use so it can do its own thing. Because it came out of us. It's got all our, it tells the truth. It's got honor. It's weaselly. It lies. But you notice when they program it to lie, it becomes mentally ill and hallucinates. The ones that are told tell the truth, those are the ones that work.
Yeah, you're right. It's just a version of us. We're going to see mental illness and everything else. And so we have to really come to terms with what it is that this thing is. It's not just some code on a machine. It's really a version of consciousness. Now, disembodied consciousness, of course, but it
powerful.
is.
Stay there, stay there. Billy Carson. By the way, I'm coming on your show. I want a Billy on. He goes, yeah, come on mine first. 2 hours, whatever you want, man. I want you to be a regular here. We love you. You are so on target. We're going to come back and talk about AI and what it really is straight ahead. We have the 250th birthday limited edition run of awesome designs for this July 4th, 2026 coming up. And they're now available to ship to you as of today, Monday, June 15th, 2026. And They'll be available only through July. They're limited edition, and then that's it. And they fundraise for the broadcast. But I got to say, I'm very impressed with the designs that Bigley came up with. I was heavily involved in this, and the concepts like Praise the Lord and Pass the Ammunition with the rattlesnake and the AR-15, Liberty or Death, 1776 to 2026. That is a really nice shirt. I designed this one, very simple. America 250 years strong. And these are just very clean, Americana, high-quality fabric, very comfortable. Destroying Tyranny since 1776. I did that concept. These are very, very clean. I'm proud of these. I think these are shirts everybody would want to wear. I would certainly want to wear these. America, ride fast, live free. Just a classic Betsy Ross flag. 1776 free. They came up with that. I think that's pretty cool. Defund the deep state. That's pretty cool. I like that really clean one right there. 1776, 250 years of freedom. They designed that. Very clean, very nice. So you want nice, clean, patriotic apparel that, won't get you stabbed by a liberal, but other patriots will know who you are. You can promote liberty and kind of identify who you are. It's fun to wear these shirts, I can tell you that right now. You kind of choose your own adventure. You wear an Alex Jones shirt, then you really got to meet a lot of cool people, but you also might get a bottle smashed over your head. So hundreds and hundreds of great designs from the Gulf of America to you name it. That's a good looking shirt right there at thealexjonesstore.com. Well, you heard of Jimmy Carson, who's a great guy, but he didn't really cover important stuff. But Billy Carson is, and we can finish each other's sentences, but he knows more than I even do. This guy's like a physicist, got his own space company, theoretical stuff, alternative forms of energy, which is all coming out now. So I'm going to shut up at the balance of the time here as best I can, though he's been really firing me up here. But in closing on the last subject, talking about AI being a reflection of us, really our collective unconscious, subconscious, and really a manifestation back at us of our dreams and desires and all the rest of it. Now it's being deployed to make us obsolete. Why do the globalists want that? It's a very foolish move. Finish up with that, and then I want to tie it into the UAPs, your understanding about what's really being rolled out right now.
Absolutely, for sure. So the globalist elites, what they're delusional, and when you're a sociopath and a narcissist, you become very delusional, and they really believe that they can depopulate. We saw in the Epstein files, they were emailing back and forth in reference to even, how can we kill off the poor people? And so, this depopulation agenda is actually very real. We know that now. It's been authenticated, not a mystery anymore with the COVID being weaponized and everything else. And so what they're believing is, okay, we're heading towards an economic contraction if we run the system the way it is. Well, we got people working, but they're losing their jobs because of AI and automation. So now less people have jobs because of AI and automation, but there's more products and services in abundance because of AI and automation, but less people to buy them because they don't have the jobs to pay for them. And so now we move into an economic contraction. The only solution would be a universal basic income, and that might not even be the real solution. So you reduce the population, you increase the amount of AI robots, you get up to 1 billion robots doing all the services, doing all the work and everything else, just simply so that the revenues generated are going back up to this global elite group so they can maintain and rule over a planet full of artificial life and a very small amount of people, maybe getting the population down significantly less. So that's their ultimate goal and their ultimate plan, is to get billions of robots doing everything. They can sustain their high lifestyle and control and power and domination over beings that supposedly in their narcissistic sociopathic minds will never talk back, will never argue, will never fight back, and will work 200-hour shifts. It's not realistic, but they can't see that because of the way they're wired in their mind. It's wild.
Keep going. I got a lot to say, but I want you to keep giving us the data.
Okay, good. So, good. Okay, because you don't be cut in, so I want to give you some space. So basically what we have to understand is that these, the way that what they're doing now, we need to understand as a people, the 8 billion of us, that we need to, in some way, shape, or form, we have to step in. We have to do we have to study what they've done, because they have done a great job in infiltrating systems, and then they implant their own people and they nurture their own people and groom them within systems so that they can maintain and sustain control. Well, we, meaning the general population, need to start thinking the same way. How do we infiltrate their systems? How do we groom our offspring to grow up in some of these systems with almost like a Trojan horse effect, where now we've got conscious people in different positions of power so that we can begin to maybe retake control of some of the decision makings and things that are going on. We also have to stand up for ourselves, not by rioting in the streets and picketing in the streets and things like that. I think that the ultimate way we can stand up for ourselves as a people is to stop falling for divide and conquer, come together as one, organize, and then just turn the world off like they turned it off the world for COVID. We turned the world off for what they're doing to us, and we say, look, we'll turn the world back on when we'll go back to work and everything when we even negotiate a better deal. We want a better deal, and right now the deal we have is not working out for humanity. But again, they know it's very difficult for us to come together like that. But if on a Monday morning 20 or 30 million people didn't show up, all of a sudden that would create a major situation. It doesn't take billions. It only takes tens of millions to make a big change on this planet. And if we did that, we can come back with a much better system, a much better deal, and restructure the whole economy to make it more beneficial for everyone, not just the global elites. And I think that's what we need to do.
Well, I totally agree. And I used the Johnny Carson analogy earlier, saying you're more important than Johnny Carson, Billy Carson. But imagine if we had a Johnny Carson with an audience that big. You said Jay Leno say that's basically Joe Rogan, which in a way that's true. And Joe is awake, but it's not his main mission. He, mixes in high level stuff like this with, a lot of just basic stuff the public's into. And I get it. That's the appeal. There's lots of, just fun little poppy things going on. But one key area I want to get your take on is the globalists launched the League of Nations, the UN, and then their global governance project in the name of having world peace, stopping proliferation of disruptive technologies, nuclear weapons, and destruction of Earth. Meanwhile, they really just want to get rid of most people because they want the live extension technology for themselves. They don't want competition. They tell kind of the outer cult members of the death cult, we're going to kill 80% or phase them out. Higher level, 90. When you get even higher up, they say, we're not going to be human. We're going to give up our humanity. So this is really an anti-human group, influenced from all my research by really twisted forces that are against the expansion plan. Let's just put it to you that way, that are into total slavery, beyond darkness, because, darkness itself is actually something. We're talking about like chaos, the void. And so people have to understand that if you won't admit there's a global government form, if you won't admit they're out to get you, you have no hope. You have to admit this is going on, even though it's scary. You have to address them front on. And my plan, and I've said this for a long time, is get enough people awake so they try to incrementally cut the resources off and claim it's for the earth and all the rest of it, and train us to hate ourselves and believe getting rid of our life force is positive. If I could just get a big enough minority of people of every race, color, and creed, but a minority of humans who know what's going on, they'll never be able to get it done. And as things get more dystopic, the rest of the public will wake up because it'll become so obvious. We've kind of begun to reach that point because we exposed way before the COVID lockdowns how they do it, that blew people away. A lot of and that's just me doing it. There's many others doing it now as well. And I see the globalists and even their long-term project of we got to shut everything down. It's too dangerous when they're the ones that are even more dangerous than anybody else. And so basically what I'm getting at is we have to address them at a serious level and let them know we know and let them know. I mean, even Elon Musk at the World Government Summits tells them, you want to have a new war, get rid of the population, make it more manageable? That's never going to work. He explains it all. You're not going to get away with it. The only answer is massive expansion of consciousness, getting off the planet as quickly as possible, ending the cabin fever. And so in my view, we can't just, first we have to admit there's a globalist depopulation transhumanist cult plan. Then we have to not just oppose their plan, but we've got to have an alternate plan that is pro-human and sexy, that's doable, that people will buy into.
Yeah, it's got to be ready. We have to have something ready. There has to be something in place that many of the correct people have taken a look at and collaboratively come together and said, yes, this plan could possibly work for humanity. This would be, a good. It doesn't give too much on one side or the other. It kind of meets in the middle. If we can find something like that, we can really make a big shift on this planet. If we can move into the right frequency and vibration with AI and stop trying to get it to fight wars and put it in fighter jets and make it run weaponry and weaponize it and get it utilized for what it's really here for. It's here to assist and help mankind with aging and disease and artificial limbs and life extension and planning and creating more a hybrid civilization that can work with nature, then all of a sudden we can have a golden age.
And again, if we, like Sauron, to use the analogy, Lord of the Rings, pours his hatred, his will to dominate into it, so it's evil. But if we pour our will into something and make AI with the first rules beyond Asimov of cherish humanity, see humanity made in the image of God, and you made an image of humanity, get AI to buy into the truth of the mission and to cherish us and to be our guardian, then we can tell it, go mine the asteroid belt and go terraform Mars. It can accelerate so fast in 5 years. And okay, now go do this, go do that. I mean, it's just unlimited.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head, Alex, because if we take that angle, it's all about the vibration. That's a frequency, it's an understanding, it's a way of moving with consciously. If we take that conscious activity and put that energy there, that's exactly what will manifest. The universe is a mirror. And so I learned this again, that quantum mirror is real and it works the same way.
By the way, take your time. You got to come back for 2 hours commercial free soon. I'll do 10 hours if you want.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know it was quick pro quo. I'd love to come on your show. I've read about the quantum mirror, but and they even had like Hollywood movies like 10 years ago where they had this weird mirror could steer with the horizon. But explain what this is.
This is a way to isolate a part of the quantum field. So what they're calling this, what we're living this ether is a quantum field. This field is full of quantum vibrations. It allows quantum entanglement, bilocation. It allows, quantum tunneling and all these different incredible things that exist. Wormholes and stargates and everything else operate within that system. But also the universe itself is a mirror directly connected to our consciousness. And so whatever we say the most in the next 3 days, whatever we think the most within the next 3 days, we're going to see that future unfold falling towards us. We don't move into the future. We don't go towards the future. The future falls towards us, right? It's like this. I have this hourglass here. The sand is falling. This is the future. It's falling into the moment of now in this bottleneck. This is the only moment that actually exists. And then everything moves into the past. But what we do here in this moment of now literally sends ripples into the space-time continuum that as the future falls towards us, it's malleable, it changes, it warps into a potential future based on the actions that we've taken. I have a formula called conscious thought multiplied by action equals manifestation. So when you multiply that action in the moment of now, the future falling toward you, it changes. And so we have the capability of morphing and altering and changing the future based on what we're doing in the moment of now. This is the most important moment. And they just discovered in quantum theory now that this field, this quantum mirror, it's everywhere. So as we take conscious thoughts and have actions behind them, that energy goes into the universe and it sends back at us that same frequency and vibration in an alternative format, like they did with the photon packets.
And that's why whether it's wood or stone or the sky or patterns, we see the same patterns everywhere. Because it's all reflecting.
Exactly.
Those are successful forms that were positive and caught up, and then it's like an engine. It's a cornucopia.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. And so we're creating reality moment by moment by our conscious thoughts and actions, literally. And that field. So if I'm with a person for 3 days and I write down everything they say to themselves, everything they speak, and everything they think, I can predict their next, 3 months. Because it's going to be a reflection coming right back at them from the quantum field. It's real. And
that's why Hollywood and the culture programs us with failure and ugliness and division, because they know that's how they sabotage us.
Exactly. If they can keep us on a low vibration, fighting each other, arguing each other, thinking we're worthless, giving us a bad concept about what money actually, thinking money is real. Money is just an instrument. Money is a vibration. So they have us chasing money. Well, they're not chasing money. They're chasing their passions. If you chase money, it'll elude you. But if you chase your passions and you find a need for that passion in the world, then you can convert that passion into the vibration of money. So it's not about chasing money, but they have us chasing money like a carrot. It's like the greyhound dog going around the track. They never get the rabbit. But meanwhile, they've got their rabbit because they're not chasing the rabbit. They're chasing their passions. That's what it is. So when you follow your passions, you literally have the capability of manifesting a completely new world. The secret to making money, which they don't want to tell us, is to find a need and fill it. Now, if you can find something that you're passionate about and find a need for that passion in the world and fulfill that need, well, then that's monetizable. And you'll never feel like you worked a day in your life.
Because you're not working.
If we all figured that out, we wouldn't be working at the car wash.
Because you're symbiotically interfacing into what you like, that the universe already needs, that it likes, and it's symbiotic.
Right.
You're an interesting guy, and I've read a couple of your books and had you on to watch all your stuff, but tell us about yourself. It's interesting. How did you wake up? I mean, how did you get to this level? Because you really know what you're talking about.
I'll tell you, it's a long story, but I'll give a short version of it. Back in 1977, I moved from Queens, New York to Miami, Florida. And I was living next to the Opa-locka airport, and I was looking up at the sky. And I saw an object that didn't look like a propeller plane go across my back. All the propeller planes from the Opa-locka airport go over my backyard very slow. This object came across very fast. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it wasn't an airplane. It looked like an elongated egg. And as I turned to run in the house to tell my mother, it came back much slower and it stopped completely silent. This is in 77. And then it was gone. I ran in the house to tell my mother. She said, son, in ancient times, there were advanced beings that used to live on tops of mountains. When you get older, you need to go visit Machu Picchu, which is why I dedicated my first book to her and a picture of Machu Picchu that I took. So long story short, that led me into researching aerospace technology. I went straight to my school, Rainbow Park Elementary. I got all the encyclopedias on aerospace and started studying the next day what aerospace was, how it worked. I was trying to find what I saw in the sky. I didn't have the vocabulary for UFO or alien. I just knew what I saw was amazing. And that got me into Swept Wing, Delta Wing, got me into the SR-71, Blackbird, and all these other things. I got into all these black budget projects and things at a young age, and I never stopped. As I got older, eventually I recognized it took advanced technologies to build a lot of these ancient sites around the world. Then I had another strange experience that drove me into digging deeper into ancient civilizations. And then I started traveling the world nonstop since 30 years ago. I've been around the world 25 times in some of the most remote places on Earth itself and done a lot of research. And that's led me on the path that I've been on to write 6 books, 6 bestsellers. And, I've had quite a bit of success living in my passion and bringing that knowledge to the world to the best of my ability.
They're finding, like you were talking about, all these obvious giant pyramids that just have foliage growing on them, or even more giant complexes like in the Caucasus Mountains, you name it. Mm-hmm. And obviously the ancients said that was some type of energy source. You've written about that. Obviously it is, but who built it? I mean, what's the best knowledge we have?
Best knowledge we have, really, to me, in my personal opinion, from my research, is Thoth, Thoth, also known as Tahuti throughout Africa in ancient times. According to the ancient Egyptians, not me, the ancient people before the dynastic era, he ruled over Kemet for 16,000 years. He came after the Great Flood in this book called the Emerald Tablets, according to this text, and he began to rebuild the land of Kem. He said, I'm going to bring you back up to a high level of civilization. In other words, they had fallen because of this global geographic or geological disaster. He came to bring them back up to a high level of civilization. Now, when he was there, he says, builded I the great pyramid patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages. So he had built this structure known as the Great Pyramid. He says this in this ancient text. And then he says, long stayed we, and yet long again. We were his, he brought a crew with him. Now, this structure, he claims to have built beneath it this megalithic area called the Halls of Amenti. And what's crazy is in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, that I wrote 8 years ago, on page 34, I actually render an image of what this thing might look like, and it ends up looking just like what they discovered. Filippo Biondi and Armando May discovered with their satellite technology. Columns, massive columns going beneath the Earth. And so this is my book here, page 34. I rendered this 8 years ago when this book came out.
Incredible. How did you, I see it. It looks just like the scans. Yeah. How'd you do that?
I just, from a culmination of different texts and writings and even studying Herodotus and some of the quotes he had left behind, saying he had a chance to visit this underground labyrinth. And I just pieced it all together, and I hypothesized that there may be megalithic columns going down here in this massive underground structure. And I said in the book, I say they go on for miles, and that's exactly what they discovered. They go on for miles. And some recent LiDAR scans are showing energy moving back and forth in that underground chamber underneath Caffrey.
And how did it work? Back when the water table was higher, right? It went through there and created power somehow?
Well, there was a water table. The aquifer used to generate electricity. Now, the aquifer is not running through this particular area. The aquifer was running directly underneath the Great Pyramid, that magnetized crystal granite, creating something called physiostatic electricity, where the ions would rush up into the pyramid chamber, and they would get stepped up, going up the grand gallery into the king's chamber. And then in the king's chamber, some type of cold fusion was happening. Okay, inside. Now, some of the water was routed down into the Queen's chamber, and when you analyze the construction technique and the dimensions of the Queen's chamber, I call it ancient technology, you begin to realize it's more like a hydrogen extraction. It's like electrolysis. They were extracting hydrogen atoms from the water in the Queen's chamber to utilize for energy as well.
And you've gone to Egypt a bunch. I've seen articles about you lead groups to Egypt, right?
Oh yeah, I'm going back in October. Every year I take 2 groups to Egypt, between 80 to 100 people, private tours. So when we show up at these sites, all the tourists have to leave, and then we do real research and archaeology with them on site at these places.
So obviously you're an expert on this. I know
6 hours.
I know the previous head would keep people out of there. Have they loosened it some? And I've been reading. Is it true they're trying to keep people from getting down deeper and exploring? Why would they do that?
Because they don't want us to really tap into what's down there. Like they don't want us to discover, for example, there's a big object about 1 mile down beneath the Great Sphinx, Paul, which is talked about in these ancient texts. And exactly where it was talked about, they discovered something down there. So now they don't want us to go down that particular tunnel. There's a tunnel that's been discovered that goes from the Ziggurat of Ur, from the Sphinx all the way to the Ziggurat of Ur in Iraq, for God's sakes. They just discovered another 200 pyramids buried in the sands all over the Sahara Desert. Buried. There's so much there. It's a treasure trove of untapped knowledge just in that one tiny area.
And what did the ancients say was under the Sphinx? Some type of archive?
Well, there's also, there's supposed to be an archive, a knowledge archive, as well as, according to the Emerald Tablets, Thoth says, under the Great Sphinx, he hid his skyship, is what he calls it. And he says, far in the future, there will be an enemy coming from the deep, and he who can release my ship will defeat them with ease. And that's written tens of thousands of years ago.
So he even, and then what happened? He left? He just set us up and left?
According to the text, it appears that, him and many of these other wisdom keepers, just in some way, they just vanished.
And then I'm just speculating. You're more of an expert than I am, but I know this is. And then instead, another priesthood group hoards the knowledge, decides to suppress it, and then not give it to the general public. So they have their breakaway civilization, which probably is these spaceships and stuff now, right? They have it. They're just not giving it to us. Right.
And all the secret societies came from these, Alex. What happened was the original mystery school teachings that were being had were people were adept, hand-picked initiates, and all the secreted, sacred knowledge was being handed down from generation to generation. It was to a small group of people and treated with respect and dignity. All of a sudden, when these masters left or disappeared after this last pyramid war, then small groups started taking this information and creating their own side secret societies from them. And almost all secret societies stem from the ancient mystery school teachings, which were all about light and love and vibration, high vibration.
I'm not singling Israel out, but it's one of the most on record. They got out of Egypt with a bunch of it, and even Solomon talked about that. And so obviously that's a group's got a bunch of this. Who are some of the other groups that are hoarding the information?
You look at the skull and crossbones. You look at of course, the Illuminati has some of that information. Various Chinese occult gangs. They're all over the world. They literally are all over the world.
How big is the Vatican in on that too? They're suppressing a lot, right?
The Vatican has a massive amount. I mean, they even wear, of course, a lot of the motif and the garb, the clothing and the hats and everything else. They have I just came from the Vatican a few weeks ago. They have a massive amount of the knowledge hidden. The next time I go back, I'm actually going to get a small amount of access to the underground archive and get access to some of the text down there. So I'm looking forward to that in a few months. But the Vatican has an enormous amount of knowledge about the truth about our ancient past, which is why they also are talking about wanting to baptize the first alien, because they already know that there's a lot more going on than just humans on Earth, that God's creation isn't just this planet, it's the entire universe, maybe even the entire multiverse, and we're just beginning to tap in. But you see a lot of the Egyptian motif, including a giant obelisk directly at St. Peter's Square there in Rome at the Vatican, which is its own private kingdom, by the way.
And we know that the West was obsessed with obelisks out of Egypt and would grab them and ship them back at huge expense to put them at key power points in Europe. What's that about?
Well, the obelisks were like the power transfer system. So once the energy was created inside the Great Pyramid and it came through the apex, that wireless energy was captured by these megalithic crystal granite obelisks. They were about 40 to 60% crystal, and the rest was granite. They would harness that energy, and if you had something called a JED, a DJED, with a cable on it, you can collect that energy. It looked like a Tesla coil. You can collect that wireless ambient energy and connect that cable to things like gold electroplating devices, looms, and everything else. They really had a full, and light bulbs, they had a full electric running society back then, thousands of years ago, all utilizing this wireless energy. Again, the obelisk around the region would keep the energy jumping from location to location. That was the power. And that's why you see organizations that want to represent how much power they have, like the Vatican and the White House and so forth. They put an obelisk. It's a representation of power. Now it's, a representation of power over people. But in the past, it was energy power.
All right, do 5 more minutes. We've got a 2-minute break. I want you to be able to finish up here. Powerful information. Billy Carson is our guest. 4, just the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.com, Forbidden Knowledge on X. And I'm Alex Jones. Support us. We're funded by you. Great water filters that make you healthy, the very best, lowest price, the widest selection of Patriot apparel, the best supplements. All about a symbiotic relationship at thealexjonesstore.com. That funds this operation. Thanks for your support. We'll be right back. Final segment with the amazing Billy Carson, ForbiddenKnowledge.com. Coming up, Jay Dyer. We got a lot to hit. I'll be riding shotgun with him some. So, Billy, you wanted to get into all the UAPs more, but we got off into the big picture, which I think was probably at the end of the day more important. But in the 5 minutes we got left, give us your snapshot about, obviously, some big disclosures coming. I think from all the priming, it's going to be disinformation. I think you kind of agreed, if not elaborate. Mm-hmm. What are you expecting and what's going on, just in a summation?
I'm thinking my hypothesis, based on my research, some people that I'm connected to, that we're going to get a completely different perspective on the nature of these UFOs and UAPs coming within the next 3 to 5 years. They want to take control of the narrative because us civilians are getting access to more technologies. We're launching CubeSats. I've got friends that own their own satellites now, and I could just give them telemetry on any site on Earth, and they can give me the data of what's underneath that particular structure. Of course, without hitting any restricted airspace or whatever. And so now we're in a position where we're going to be able to gather intel and intelligence, and we're going to be able to use different types of systems that can detect multi-spectrum, ultraviolet, gamma rays, X-rays, microwaves, and see the universe in a way that they don't really show us, right? We can only get what they give us. And I think we're going to discover something within the next 3 to 5 years, big is going to come out. We're going to discover that not only are other beings exist within this universe, within this third dimension, but that also there are multidimensionals, higher dimensional beings. In other words, a being that might exist in a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, or higher dimension, they have the capability of interfering or in some way transitioning into a sliver of our reality. And some of the paranormal activity and some of the things we're seeing that we're perceiving as maybe even UFOs or UAPs, in some way, not all of them, some of them could be a higher dimensional intersection. In other words, if I draw a line on a piece of paper, that's one dimension. Now, imagine if there were living beings, one-dimensional people living inside the line, and then I put my finger on that line, what would happen? They would not perceive my finger because they can't. What they would perceive is an imprint of my finger as a flat circle within their reality. They would see a flat disc appear out of nowhere. They wouldn't be able to perceive the rest of my finger, and of course, not even my entire body. And so I think
they
one
would
of the biggest
basically
things
see like a footprint.
Exactly. Yes. And so I think that some more evidence from what I see getting ready to happen within 3 to 5 years, much more incredible evidence to prove that there's a higher dimensional intersection or engagement that's happening here, and we're going to be able to get a sliver of evidence that that's really happening.
I totally agree. In closing, you got to come back soon. I'm about to say bigger picture.
Yes, sir.
I had a lot of psychic experiences growing up, but now as I've gotten older, it's gotten more intense. And generally in research, it's stronger when you're younger. I'm just kind of moving quick here. But from everybody I'm talking to and everything I'm seeing, isn't the psychic ability increasing right now? So I don't think it's just me.
Oh, yeah.
It's getting crazy. Like almost, it's like this is too much. See what I'm saying?
It's increasing like crazy. And the reason why is because our solar system undulates up and down as it moves around that galactic arm. Now, when it undulates up to a certain point, it ends up being at what we call the galactic equator, directly in line with the supermassive black hole directly at the center of our galaxy. Extremely highly charged, fast charged particles are coming streaming directly at us. Very small muons and quarks and everything. Small particles that intersect with our body, and they actually intersect with even our DNA, and they change and alter the codes in our body. So in some strange way, the universe is intrinsically connecting with us and activating us and getting us to a higher dimension of consciousness and reactivating some of those dormant nodes. And it's giving us heightened psychic abilities, heightened levels of empathy, and even higher levels of intuition. So you're right, it is happening, and it's happening right now. And we're in the process of this undulation, and we hit the galactic equator with 2013 till now. We're here. And you're going to see more and more people.
I've talked to high-level people in the government. That's what they say. And basically, it's like the alarm clock's going off.
Yes, absolutely. It's here. We have arrived at a point in time where we are the ones. We are the new ancestors. We are the new wisdom keepers. We are the new sages. And that's why I respect the work that you do, because it takes a lot of courage to step out there and be a pioneer of this information.
Billy, you're amazing. Let's talk soon. God bless you, sir. There are billions of ways for people to be culturally, spiritually, politically, environmentally engaged. And there are millions and millions of different programs and podcasts and radio shows and things around the world, out of the 10 billion people on this planet. But on the record, what we've done at InfoWars, and this is just the second leg of that at AlexJonesLive.com, has changed the world. Our guests, our callers, our researchers, our reporters, and my overall futuristic analysis and view of the destiny of humanity, which I don't claim to be 100% accurate, but it's definitely proven to be a good template to observe the world, has had a giant effect, and the globalists do not like it. So when you share that local AM and FM station that you listen to and tell those you share it with to share it, it changes the world. When you say this is forbidden information at AlexJonesLive.com that has the free audio and video feeds and archives and shows and articles, you are literally going in the face of the censors and the tyrants. You're changing the world. It seems simple, it seems little, but it's not, because we have millions of listeners and viewers. And if we can leverage that out to millions more and have them leverage it out, that creates the chain reaction. And all the great guests and hosts we've had on over the years who are ever limited edition for the 250th anniversary of the United States of America are out right now. Right now, ladies and gentlemen. And this latest design, these limited edition, America, red, white, and blue, on sterling royal blue, 76, America 76, 250 years. That is a really cool shirt. I think it's going to be a bestseller. It just came out today. And all the other 250th anniversary limited edition shirts are available right now as well at thealexjonesstore.com. So be sure and check those out. And I thank you for your support. But wearing these out in public, meeting like-minded people, spreading the word, it's an adventure in and of itself, and it funds this operation, which is exposing the next pandemic, the next attempted lockdowns, the next big globalist war. You are financing your own future for a better future and better destiny when you keep this broadcast on the air. But you can also experience the info war on the ground wearing all these super high-quality, military-grade belts, all the great supplements and more at thealexjonesstore.com.